Right now, like at this exact moment, you have exactly 1 teaspoon of sugar circulating in your entire bloodstream. Just one single teaspoon.
Yeah, which is honestly, it's not a lot when you think about it.
Right. It's nothing. But if you're eating anything that even remotely resembles a standard modern diet, you are likely dumping up to 100 teaspoons of sugar into your body every single day.
I mean, the math on that is just staggering. It really is.
It is completely wild. And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're looking at some notes and excerpts from a presentation by Dr. Eric Berg. And, well, the surface level focus of this is on a very specific daily drink that's designed to unclog arteries.
Yeah, but, the actual implications of this go so much deeper than just a beverage.
Exactly. We are really going to unpack how your cardiovascular system actually works, how your body tries to repair the sheer chaos of our modern diets, and really why conventional medical wisdom often just targets the wrong culprit entirely.
Yeah, and I think this shift in perspective, it really changes everything about how you manage your health. Because, this isn't just some list of ingredients to, blend up in the morning.
Right, like a quick fix smoothie or whatever.
Exactly. It's a complete dismantling of this idea that your arteries are just these dumb, inanimate plumbing pipes that passively get clogged with sludge.
Which is how everyone pictures it.
Totally. But the reality is that your blood vessels are these highly dynamic, really intelligent environments. And when we start treating them like living tissue, rather than just static hardware, we can make vastly different choices.
That plumbing metaphor is it's so ingrained in us, Like, we picture eating a greasy burger and the pipes get gunked up and then a doctor has to come in and, snake the drain.
Yeah, the old roto-rooter analogy.
Exactly. But this presentation highlights a major flaw in that model, specifically regarding what doctors are actually looking at when you go in for your annual checkup.
Right, because they're measuring downstream symptoms.
Right. They look at your blood pressure numbers or your total cholesterol, and they just throw medication at those numbers to force them down.
Yeah, which means they are completely missing the root cause. And the source here identifies that root cause as endothelial damage.
Endothelial damage. Okay, so break that down for us.
So the endothelial layer is this really fascinating piece of anatomy. It's a super fragile lining. It is literally just a single cell thick, and it coats the entire interior of your vascular system.
Wow, just one cell thick.
Yeah, just one. So when that delicate interior wall sustains any damage, it triggers this massive biological cascade. And the very first response is localized inflammation.
Okay, so like a swelling.
Exactly. Your body basically recognizes a breach in the system and just goes into full-on emergency repair mode.
And the material that your body actually uses to patch that breach, that's what we call plaque.
Okay.
And the presentation breaks down what this plaque is actually made of. It's a mixture of calcium, cholesterol, and protein.
Yeah, and this is where we really need a complete paradigm shift, regarding how we view cholesterol. Plaque is a reparative action.
It's trying to fix you.
Right. It doesn't just maliciously decide to stick to the side of an artery just to ruin your day. The body is actively constructing that plaque to patch over the inflamed, damaged endothelium.
It makes me think of driving down a highway and coming across a massive pothole. The city dispatches a road crew to fill that hole with asphalt so cars don't just destroy their suspensions.
That's a really great way to look at it.
Yeah, so blaming cholesterol for your clogged arteries is literally like blaming the asphalt patching crew for the pothole.
Right, like getting mad at the construction workers.
Exactly. They didn't cause the damage, they were deployed to keep the road functional.
Yeah, and the source also points out that doctors and really just diet culture in general have spent decades vilifying dietary cholesterol. And they completely ignore the fact that your body manufactures the vast majority of the cholesterol in your blood, all on its own.
Wait, it makes most of it anyway.
Oh, yeah. It does this because cholesterol is this incredibly vital biological building block. Your body uses it to synthesize hormones, maintain cell membranes. It is a necessary tool, not the initial villain we make it out to be.
Okay, so that obviously raises a huge question. If the plaque is just the asphalt patch, what is tearing up the road in the first place? What is causing that initial endothelial damage?
Well, to understand the fallout, we really have to look at a crucial signaling molecule called nitric oxide, or NO.
Nitric oxide, got it.
Yeah, so nitric oxide is a powerful vasodilator. Under healthy conditions, its main job is to communicate with the muscular layer of your blood vessels, basically instructing them to relax and widen.
Okay, keeping the highway lanes wide open for traffic.
Exactly. But
Right.
the second you develop that endothelial damage we talked about, your body's ability to produce nitric oxide just plummets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and without that vasodilation signal, you lose the ability to control your blood pressure. The vessels just stay constricted. And over time, the actual walls of the arteries become thicker, they get stiffer, and they lose that, that youthful elasticity.
So they become rigid pipes.
Right. And most dangerously, a drop in nitric oxide sends the risk of blood clotting straight through the roof.
And the statistic in the source material about this is just staggering. It says 90% of all heart attacks involve clots. 90%.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It really is. And that clotting risk is a direct downstream effect of low nitric oxide levels triggered by that endothelial damage.
So, artificially forcing your blood pressure down with a pill does absolutely nothing to heal the stiff, inflamed artery or, restore the missing nitric oxide.
No, it doesn't. Now, there are natural ways to boost nitric oxide production. The notes mention that just exposing your skin to sunlight triggers it through a combination of vitamin D synthesis and absorbing infrared rays.
Oh, I've heard that about sunlight. Yeah, and simply breathing through your nose rather than your mouth increases it too. Ensuring you have adequate magnesium intake also gives it a boost. But none of those interventions actually address the root cause of the damage itself.
Right, which brings us right back to the real culprit causing the potholes. Dr. Berg points the finger squarely at refined sugars and starches. And, it's important to remember here that starches are ultimately just complex chains of sugar anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's look at the math on the presentation, because this is where the sheer scale of the problem becomes totally undeniable. A normal, healthy blood sugar level is around 80 milligrams per deciliter.
Right, and translating that clinical measurement into a real-world visual is incredibly revealing. That quote-unquote normal level equates to exactly 1 teaspoon of sugar dissolved across your entire body's blood supply.
1 teaspoon total, just one. Yet, the average person consuming a standard diet gets 45 to 65% of their daily calories from refined sugars or starches?
Yeah.
And the presentation calculates that this amounts to consuming between 50 to 100 teaspoons of sugar every single day, just based on a standard 2,000 calorie diet.
And the biological mechanism of what happens next is just brutal. When you dump that massive amount of sugar into the bloodstream, it essentially acts like rust.
Like rust.
Yeah. Through a process called glycation, those excess sugar molecules literally bind to proteins in your blood, and they become these rigid, abrasive structures that physically scrape against and corrode those delicate endothelial cells.
Oh, man.
It is just constant daily friction.
Wait, hold on a second, though. If my blood can only safely handle 1 teaspoon of sugar at a time, right, and I am theoretically dumping 100 teaspoons into my system throughout the day, why does my annual blood test say my blood sugar is perfectly normal?
That is the big question.
Right. Where are the other 99 teaspoons going? It seems like I should be completely overflowing with it. That just doesn't make sense.
Well, this is where we meet the absolute unsung hero of your metabolism, which is insulin. To protect your arteries from this fatal rusting process, your pancreas pumps out insulin. You can think of insulin as a sort of master key.
Okay,
Yeah. So when that massive wave of sugar hits your bloodstream, insulin rushes in, frantically unlocking the doors to your cells and shoving that toxic sugar inside as fast as you can swallow it.
Wow.
It essentially forces the sugar out of the blood and into the tissues and liver to prevent it from tearing up those vascular walls.
Oh, I get it. So the blood test comes back looking totally normal because insulin is just working in extreme overdrive behind the scenes to hide the mess.
Exactly. The pancreas is wildly overcompensating to save your arteries. But, that extreme effort has an expiration date.
Obviously, it can't do that forever.
Right. The pancreas can only sustain that maximum output for about 15 to 20 years. And eventually, the organ just becomes utterly exhausted. It physically cannot manufacture enough insulin to keep up with the incoming sugar tsunami.
So the master keys stop getting produced, the doors stay locked,
Right.
and the sugar has literally nowhere to go but to stay in the blood.
That is exactly the threshold where blood sugar levels finally begin to creep up on a lab test. The rust accumulates, the arterial damage accelerates, and the person crosses into prediabetes and eventually full-blown diabetes.
Yeah, it's scary.
And the source points out another vicious connection here, too. all that excess refined sugar that the liver processes, it gets converted into cholesterol.
Wait, really?
Yes. It drives the rampant inflammation, which causes the endothelial damage, which tanks the nitric oxide, which then signals the body to build more plaque.
Wow, so it is just a completely self-perpetuating loop of damage and patching. We have rigid, rusting pipes, exhausted organs, and asphalt patches basically blocking the flow.
It's a bad situation.
But thankfully, Dr. Berg doesn't just lay out the damage. The presentation provides a very specific mechanism that the body uses to actually clear out existing plaque and reverse this condition. It's called reverse cholesterol transport, or RCT.
Right. And if the plaque is the asphalt patch, RCT is basically the cleanup crew. It is a built-in biological transport mechanism designed to literally pull cholesterol buildup off the artery walls, shift it into reverse, and carry it all the way back to the liver where it can be recycled or safely excreted from the body.
It is just incredible that the body had the dedicated reverse gear for this kind of stuff. And the source highlights several ways to actually trigger RCT. Vitamin B3 is a major catalyst.
Yeah.
And HDL, which we always hear called the quote-unquote good cholesterol, it earns that title specifically because its primary job is to act as the transport vehicle carrying that cholesterol away from the arteries and back to the liver.
Exactly. Engaging in physical exercise and utilizing fasting protocols are also massive triggers for RCT, and heavily tying into the insulin burnout we just discussed, adopting a low-carb diet is incredibly effective.
Which makes sense, cutting out the sugar.
Yeah, and the presentation states that switching to a low-carb diet can remove up to 40% of the fat stored in your liver in just 14 days.
40% in 2 weeks? That speed is just phenomenal. But clearing the liver is just one step, right?
Once the RCT vehicles drop the excess cholesterol off at the liver, how does it actually exit the system entirely?
Right. So that disposal process relies heavily on bile salts. The liver utilizes a healthy flow of bile to route that excess cholesterol down through the digestive tract and out of the body.
Okay.
But the source notes a really important caveat here for people who have had their gallbladders removed.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people have that issue.
Right. So because their bile regulation is compromised, they often struggle with cholesterol buildup simply because this exit route is bottlenecked. They frequently require bile salt supplementation to keep that disposal chute functioning properly.
Okay, so that handles the cholesterol component of the plaque. But we noted earlier that the plaque is actually composed of cholesterol, protein, and calcium.
Right.
And I've had family members whose doctors were highly alarmed by, calcified arteries. How do we address the calcium hardening the vessel walls? So the vascular system operates on a really fascinating mineral synergy. The muscular layer of the arteries contracts using calcium, and it relaxes using magnesium.
Okay, contract with calcium, relax with magnesium.
Exactly. Magnesium is basically the master controller of that physical movement. If you are experiencing blood pressure problems or stiff arteries, increasing your magnesium intake is the natural biological antidote. It actively forces those muscle fibers to release and relax.
Okay, but you still have the issue of rogue calcium floating around and, embedding itself in the soft tissue of the arteries where it clearly doesn't belong.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And the source notes highlight vitamin K2 as the solution here.
Right. Vitamin K2 plays a highly specific role in mineral management. It operates through biological signaling, specifically activating proteins that bind to calcium.
It functions exactly like a strict traffic cop.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, you've got this rogue calcium just wandering toward the fragile endothelial layer. Vitamin K2 essentially blows the whistle, grabs the calcium, and aggressively redirects traffic, forcing that mineral away from the soft tissues and routing it straight into the skeletal system, the bones and the teeth, where it is actually required.
Yeah, by managing exactly where those minerals are allowed to settle, K2 directly prevents arterial calcification.
Okay, so we've established a pretty clear roadmap here. Stop the sugar from rusting the pipes, manage the minerals to keep the vessels relaxed, and trigger the reverse cholesterol transport cleanup crew.
Exactly.
And physical exercise is one of the strongest triggers for that cleanup. But the actual core of Dr. Berg's presentation is this specific drink that chemically mimics the physical exertion of a workout.
Yeah, he literally refers to it as exercise in a cup.
Exercise in a cup, and the primary ingredient driving this effect is raw cacao powder.
Right.
And the notes are extremely adamant about the preparation here. This is absolutely not the roasted sugary cocoa powder you buy in a tin at the grocery store.
No. The distinction is critical. It must be raw cacao.
Right.
This is the barely refined, unheated bean.
Right.
The reason standard hot chocolate won't work is because the industrial roasting process uses high heat, which completely denatures and destroys the delicate plant chemicals inside the bean. And those chemicals are called flavanols or polyphenols.
The clinical trial data on these raw flavanols is just wild. Like, researchers conducted a study comparing the vasodilation, the actual physical widening of the blood vessels from consuming raw cacao powder against the vasodilation produced by a session of moderate physical exercise. The vascular response was nearly identical.
That is amazing. The flavanols physically reverse the arterial stiffness that typically drives up blood pressure as we age.
And there's another study in the notes focusing on people between the ages of 50 and 80. They had this group consume raw cacao powder daily for 14 days. After just 2 weeks, researchers measured the thickness of their arteries and found that the vascular tissue had rejuvenated to a level comparable to people 20 to 30 years younger.
20 to 30 years.
Yeah. Dr. Berg actually calls it anti-aging on steroids.
Well, the mechanism behind how this works is what makes it so permanent, honestly, because cacao doesn't actually contain native nitric oxide.
Oh, it doesn't?
No. When you consume a standard supplement that contains a chemical, your body basically just uses it up and then it's gone. Cacao operates entirely differently. It interacts with the endothelium to stimulate an enzyme called ENO, that's endothelial nitric oxide synthase.
Oh, so it's targeting the actual manufacturing process, like a factory upgrade, not just a supply drop.
Exactly. An enzyme is a biological catalyst, so cacao forces your body's own internal factory floor to power up and start manufacturing its own nitric oxide again.
Wow.
Yeah, because aging naturally degrades this enzyme machinery, which is exactly why older arteries get stiff. The cacao is effectively rehabilitating the system, and the source emphasizes that these effects are cumulative. You are actively teaching the vascular tissue how to function youthfully again.
That is so cool. And the drink recipe also includes a mix-in that's designed to supercharge this whole process, which is a scoop of beetroot juice powder.
Right, because beetroot creates a really powerful biological synergy with the cacao. Unlike the cacao bean, beetroot juice powder actually does contain native nitric oxide.
Oh, I see. So you get this immediate infusion of nitric oxide from the beetroot to force the vessels open today, while the cacao is busy repairing the ENOS enzyme machinery so your body can synthesize its own nitric oxide tomorrow.
Exactly.
It tackles the problem from both ends simultaneously.
It is an incredibly elegant intervention. But for anyone planning to actually integrate this into their routine, the source lays out several strict rules for preparation. And if you ignore these, you will completely neutralize the benefits of the ingredients.
Yeah, let's go over those. The first rule dictates the water temperature. You must mix the raw cacao and beetroot powder into warm water. It can never, ever be boiling.
Right, because cacao is a raw, unheated product, right? So dumping boiling water into the mug will essentially cook the powder on contact.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the intense heat will denature those miraculous flavanols and just completely destroy the enzymes required to trigger the nitric oxide production.
So warm water only. The recipe also calls for adding a pinch of sea salt or a scoop of magnesium glycinate, which actually aligns perfectly with what we just discussed about magnesium being the master controller that signals the arterial muscles to relax.
Exactly. You are providing the exact mineral environment needed to facilitate that vasodilation.
And the presentation also recommends sourcing organic powders just to avoid ingesting any chemical pesticides, naturally. But the absolute most crucial caveat in the entire protocol revolves around coffee.
Oh, yeah. This is a big one.
I know a lot of people would intuitively think, oh, I'll just stir this raw cacao powder directly into my morning coffee to save time. Dr. Berg explicitly warns against this if your goal is heart health.
Yeah, the issue is the caffeine. I mean, we just spent this entire deep dive focusing on achieving vasodilation and, the widening and relaxing of the blood vessels.
Right.
Well, caffeine is a potent vasoconstrictor. Its primary biological effect is to actively shrink and tighten those exact same blood vessels.
So the ingredients are basically engaged in a physiological tug of war. The cacao is working to open the highway lanes, and the coffee is aggressively trying to shut them down.
Exactly. If you combine them, the caffeine will severely interfere with the vascular benefits of the nitric oxide. The presentation is very clear on the timing here. To achieve the arterial healing and the age reversal results, you must consume the cacao mixture either 2 hours before or 2 hours after drinking caffeinated coffee.
You have to respect that buffer zone.
You really do.
Now, the notes do mention that raw cacao provides excellent benefits for cognitive focus and skin health. So if you're only interested in the brain boost and don't really care about the cardiovascular effects, mixing it into coffee is fine. But for arterial repair, that 2-hour rule is just non-negotiable.
Yeah, it really just comes down to understanding the specific biological signals you are sending your body at any given moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We set out today to analyze a simple morning drink recipe, but the source material really forced us to completely reevaluate our internal biology. We learned how a daily avalanche of sugar chemically rusts our vascular system, and how insulin works like a frantic master key trying to mitigate that damage until the pancreas just simply burns out.
Right.
We explored how vitamin K2 acts as a cellular traffic cop and how raw plant enzymes can literally rehabilitate aging arteries.
Yeah, we moved away from the concept of the body as this, passive plumbing system and discovered an incredibly responsive network that is basically constantly waiting for the correct chemical instructions to initiate repairs.
And there is a profound irony in all of this. Consider the habits we've discussed today. A completely normalized, culturally celebrated routine, like drinking a large cup of caffeinated coffee, is actively constricting your blood vessels and elevating tension in your vascular system.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a historically normal but increasingly rare habit like just stepping outside to let sunlight hit your bare skin actively dilates those vessels and promotes healing.
It's so true. Our daily routines are constantly manipulating our biology in ways we, rarely consciously acknowledge.
It really makes you realize that your body isn't just humming along in the background. It is intimately reacting to the timing and chemistry of every small choice you make. If simply spacing out your coffee and a cacao drink by 2 hours can determine the physical width of the arteries inside your chest, well, what other invisible biological tug-of-wars are happening inside you right now, completely dictated by the hidden timing of your daily routines? Your biology is always listening. You just have to ensure you're sending the right signals.